Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show. I'm your host, Matthew Head. In this episode, I'm talking to Kelly Monday. She works at Microsoft as a global account manager for WPP. WPP are a big name in advertising. She actually manages the relationship between them and Microsoft. She studied marketing at Birmingham University and then went to work in sales for IBM before she moved to Microsoft. Where at Microsoft, she's also a mental health ambassador and has run the Thinking Differently About Dyslexia bootcamp for Microsoft UK. I will post links to anything we talk about in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Well, I thought I'd start with a conversation off with is why you do sales in IT?
Good question. I don't know either.
I see.
I fell into sales, if you like. I fell into IT. I did a marketing degree at university, and I ended up doing a gap year as part of my degree and did a year in industry at IBM, at which point I kind of got the taste for the world of work, if you like, and where my degree could take me. And I joined as a graduate. So as with any graduate scheme, you try lots of different roles out. And first of all, I was in IT delivery. And then I moved into sales within about 4 or 5 years, and just thought it was definitely more for me. It's plays to my strengths. So, communication, building relationships, bigger picture thinking, all the things that are associated with dyslexia, to be honest. So it seemed, looking back, it looks like it was an obvious choice in a way, but it was never a planned choice, as with many of my roles, to be honest. But I think that's the exciting thing of having a career in IT, because people think you have to be techie sav, and actually there's all sorts of different roles within the IT industry. You don't have to be technical, you just have to be passionate about the technology.
Okay, so you'd say you're not very tech savvy, is how you're describing your kind of interaction with IT?
Probably compared to the average person I am, but I know some extremely talented technical people who I would absolutely put on a pedestal before me. But I'm pretty proficient IT-wise in terms of a business perspective, but I wouldn't be sat there coding. So that's not my bag.
No, I bet you learn a bit by osmosis when you sat in meetings with the techie people going through it, start to pick up all the keywords and what they're kind of talking about at points.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to have a good understanding to be able to talk to your customers about really how the technology is going to help their business. I don't need to know the ins and outs of it, but I do need to understand the basics and the foundations of how it's really going to help drive change for them. So, my role is to be quite broad and have a broad understanding of our portfolio, which again lends itself well, I think, to the way that I process information. Broad sense of what I do.
So you said you did a graduate scheme at IBM. I did a graduate scheme with Siemens, and I used it to take advantage of not only learning what I need to learn as an engineer, but doing all the random jobs I probably would never do again. I did like management accounting and quality assurance and business excellence, just to see how I'd fit in different worlds. One of the things I discovered really was I was able to learn jobs pretty quickly, which I think is partly because I'm dyslexic. How did you plan your grad scheme through with IBM?
So it was quite structured. You did quite a lot of training up front. You did different roles. So I did operational roles. I did some sort of, I wouldn't say techie roles, but I did software testing. So you kind of go through the business systems and make sure that they're working. I did project management roles. And so you've got a broad sense of being on large projects and dipping in and out of these different roles to give you a flavour of learning different skills and becoming quite rounded, I would say. And then before you actually decide on what you're going to do, which is interesting because I flipped completely out of all of them and went into sales.
So sales wasn't part of your grad scheme then?
No.
Oh, right.
It was still part of IBM, but I changed after about 4 or 5 years.
So what sort of drew you to the sales job from what you were doing before? Did you just sort of see some sort of beacon at one point? Or
I'm quite creative in my thinking. I'm big on relationships, and I'm not particularly structured all the time. And sales is quite like that. You have to kind of roll with it, and there's ups and downs. And I think personality wise, it suited me. I can do the structured stuff, but I don't enjoy it as much. I think that's the thing. It's finding what you enjoy. And, you know, I love social influence. I love kind of the creativity and the complex problem solving, and working with customers to understand their business problems, and then being able to understand how we can help really is exciting, rather than being in the delivery side of it. Obviously, I work with the delivery guys in my team, but that's the bit I find is really how do we help solve their business problems with what we have to offer. And I think that's why I gravitated towards sales. And it can be quite creative, whether that's how you present information, how you create commercials. And it's very varied. You know, my week is never the same, which I really enjoy. COVID's been really hard because I like being out and about and seeing people. And, you know, I didn't sign up for a desk job. So it was quite a tough 12 months being at home behind a screen all the time.
Yes. You're well versed on, I was about to say Zoom, but you probably use Teams by that point. Yes.
It's definitely the way to go. Yes.
Yes, I can imagine. So how did you find, or when did you find out you were dyslexic? Let's bring that back to the beginning.
So I was diagnosed when I was 19, which was a bit of a shock, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure that I really embraced that well. So I was doing my degree, and it was after my first year that my lecturer came up to me. It was the head lecturer of the faculty department, and just said that something didn't fit for him. He said, you know, my written work and my communication skills didn't match. So if I was presenting and talking versus what I was writing down, they were kind of far apart. And he kind of picked up that this was probably that I was dyslexic. You know, I had difficulty with my punctuation. My grammar was all over the place. I confused my upper and lower case letters constantly. I don't know why I do that. But yeah, I'd write little, but to the point. But in explaining something, I would tell a story and be a lot more kind of imaginative in how I could put information across. So, you know, it appeared that I just couldn't commit stuff to paper. And even little things, when I look back, like I confused my left and my right all the bloody time. And even when I passed my driving test, I went the wrong way. But because I signalled, they can't fail you, apparently. So
right. So during your driving test, you went the wrong way.
So it didn't matter.
As the examiner, like, can we please go right now? The other one?
I have to do that thing, you know, where you have to hold your hands up with your left and your right. I have to do that all the time because I'm very visual. So I find it, you know, difficult. You know, and at school, I was good at maths and I was good at art, which is very common, apparently. And I ended up doing a marketing degree, which is a combination of kind of creative and business. And my lecturer sort of pulled me aside and said, I think you are dyslexic and you should go for a test. And at first, I really didn't want to, and I was a bit confused, embarrassed. I thought it meant that I was thick. I didn't know much about it. One of my really close friends actually said, do you know you get a free laptop and you get a load of this other stuff that's going to help you? And I was like, oh, well, girl from Wales is not going to say no to a free laptop. So I went to
Of course.
And it was confirmed that I was dyslexic. And the problem that I guess I had with that was no one really explained the strengths, and we can come on to that. But at the time, it was explained to me in you're dyslexic, therefore you can't do this. This is therefore you're not good at this. The only good thing it did for me was in my degree is because I was diagnosed by the end of year one, I then got provided with technology that helped me. And actually, I laugh about having the laptop and stuff, but I also had recording equipment in my lectures. So because my concentration is, you know, tends to be, I'm a good for half an hour type person. I could listen to my lectures back, and that's how I revised. I would listen to them and write stuff down because I was visualizing what I could hear. The laptop was great. It helped me with punctuation and grammar, but that's, as you know, context, spelling and things like that. Spell check is not the answer to everything, right?
No.
Help from like a person who was there to check my spelling and grammar, who knew nothing about the topic or the subject. So they were unable to change what I'd written, but they were able to clarify with me what I meant, what I was saying. So that really, really helped. I never had an issue with time though, like exams and things. I never needed extra time. But I think that the extra help when it came to grammar, sentence structure, being able to get what I wanted on paper was really helpful in my dissertation, in my final year. So I think, while it was a bit of a difficult thing for me to accept, because people, at the time I was only 19 and it was referred to as a disability, and you don't want to be different to everyone at 19.
No, definitely.
That's how I was diagnosed. Fast forward, I have a very different perception of it. And if I look back to my schoolwork, I mean, if you look on my LinkedIn profile, I've written about when I came across my old school reports, and it's just so obvious. It jumps out at you that, this should have been picked up.
Yes. Yeah.
But unfortunately, as they say, if you're bright, you can cover your dyslexia really well. And I'm not saying I was like the perfect student. I was, always pushing boundaries and rules. But I got 2 B's in A level without any help. But I do get a little bit cross. It's not the word. It's a little bit disappointed in the education system that I think I probably could have done better. That said, I went on to get my degree and get a first in marketing and get my graduate job, and things worked out fine, right? And actually, I don't know that my path would have changed by having better GCSEs or better A levels. I think I ended up in the right place, doing the right degree and in the right career. So it's more that confidence piece when I was 19 that people never explained to me what was the positives of being dyslexia. That was the difficult part.
Yes, so 19, you'd have been first or second year at university by that point?
It was first because I resat my first year of A levels, because I messed around, if I'm honest.
The bar was really interesting, was it?
I just, it was sixth form. Everyone wants to go out.
Yeah.
But I was also doing different topics, and I wasn't particularly interested in them. So therefore I wasn't showing up in the right way. And, first year went and I said, right, I need to reset this. And, I started doing different A levels. I think at the time I was doing history, and I changed to religious philosophy, which was really interesting, particularly religious, but I found the whole history and philosophy really, really interesting and something I could get behind. So, after a year of kind of mucking about and figuring out what I was going to do, I knuckled down to do my A levels, got through them, and then applied to uni. So, it wasn't the smoothest sailing, but I ended up sort of a little bit more mature, I think, going through that process and realizing, your mistakes.
Yes, I discovered when I went to university as a mature student, actually some of my course mates who'd been out for a year and come back just sat at a different level to somebody who just rolled straight out of their A levels or highers, because I was in Scotland on the course. So that probably gives you an advantage compared to quite a lot of other first year students.
I think the A levels piece, not so much. I was still that innocent 19-year-old from Wales going to Birmingham, which seemed like a really scary city at the time. But my year in industry, doing that year and realizing suddenly that this degree counts for something, there's something out there in the real world. That's when I came back for my final year, very, very focused. And I had to get I think I had to get a 2-1 as a minimum to even get back into the company. So that focuses the mind somewhat. But I definitely enjoyed my first year in uni.
Yes. I think most of us do at some point. And then hangovers start and you realise that's a bad idea. And then, as you say, it gets into focus what the actual reason you're studying a degree is.
Yeah, it's a growing up experience, I think, transitioning from living at home to uni.
Yes. Oh my God, I've got all this freedom. Oh my God, I need a budget for all of it. What do I do now?
Any money, Mum?
Yeah. How do I boil pasta? Yeah. You mentioned about having a free laptop off, I assume, on DSA. What sort of assistive technology did that have on it?
Not a lot, to be honest. I had the recording equipment, which I found really super useful because that helped me revise and digest information on my own terms. And I think that's a big part of your dyslexia. I try and help people understand that about me, that if you just swamp me with a whole load of information, I won't react that well. I turn into that 7-year-old who can't process it as well. And then, so I think the laptop was more around, when I first went to uni, I didn't know how to type. I didn't know.
Okay.
Right. So my school was quite not very advanced, I'd say, with technology. And so my first year, when they said, we don't accept written work, I totally freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Right. In hindsight, it probably was better for me having a computer and learning to type, because the spell check and the grammar and stuff is way better than my written work would be. Never perfect, but definitely better for me at the time. So a combination of those things. I think because I was 19 when I was diagnosed, I had a lot of coping strategies, and that's quite hard to break. Even now, getting used to the amazing tech that's out there today, I have to work hard to build that into my daily routine and think about it, because I've learned so many times to cover things up, or ways of coping with it, that had I learnt these tricks and tips as a child, it would be very different.
Yes, I find that as I walk through and find more and more assistive tech, you sometimes do sort of drop back into the old thing, and then a voice in your head's like, what are you doing? You have a tool that does this brilliantly.
And I talk about them all the time, right? And when the kids, we've done the kids boot camps where we're showing the children how to use them, and it's like, Kel, you need to remember to use this stuff. But it's that building that muscle memory, I guess.
It is. You sort of, I guess you find, because like for 19 years through school and you got all right grades, that this coping strategy that you didn't know was a coping strategy worked. So you almost don't want to shed that because there's a new tool, do you? You almost want to kind of swap between the two, or you kind of stay in that one, or just not realize you're doing it.
Yeah, I think it's unconscious most of the time, because when I do realize, if I've got an important email to write, often then I will use read aloud, because I can hear the mistakes. I just can't see them. And I've got used to doing that. And then if I'm writing a presentation for TalkTrack, in PowerPoint, I can use the recording. So it will just narrate what I'm saying, which is much easier when you're trying to write a presentation, because actually you want it to sound like you. You don't want it to be this robotic script.
No. You mentioned about having the recorder for lectures. As you say about not being a slightly sort of shy 19-year-old. How did you find?
I'm not sure I was ever shy.
Oh, right. I must have misinterpreted that. How did you find taking out lectures and sitting it out?
Yeah, quite uncomfortable. To start with, it's quite uncomfortable to start with. I'd have to go to the front and put the recording device down with the microphone when my lecturers knew. And then I got used to it, and my friends knew. And actually, I knew that it was helping me. And to be honest, if I was really hungover and not listening to the lecture at all, I knew I had a backup.
I can see the logic. Did you find a lot of your course mates wanted a copy of the recording?
Just we're all listening around it.
Yeah. Exam time, we're all huddling. What did he say? Yeah, I had a recording device, but never ever used it. For that very reason, I felt quite embarrassed to be able to go sit at the front of the thing and put it on there and aim it at the lecturer. I didn't really want to ask them, but luckily they had really good course notes, so I didn't necessarily feel the need to use it. And friends with really good memories.
It really useful, because to revise, it sounds like long-winded, but I would listen to it and write down what was being said at the same time, because it was almost like by visualizing the words, it was going in and I could remember it. And then I would remember writing, like I had a method for exams, which was like a shopping list. So all the key points that I wanted to put down, I would put down at the beginning of the timer going off and know that I needed to cover all those things. And then I was okay. So some of it is, memory, I guess, and being able to recall that information, and actually being dyslexic, sometimes short-term memory is a problem for me. I forget all the time. So by revising in that way for a few weeks, I've kind of remembering those things and narrating it to myself really helped. The short-term memory, long-term memory thing is really annoying sometimes, because I think, why can't I remember the name of someone I met yesterday? Yeah, I could probably tell you 10 series of Friends, in every episode, what they're going to say.
Yes.
Sometimes, once I know it, I retain it for a long time. It's just that short-term retention.
Yes, it's forcing it through that, whatever it is in the brain that has to kind of keep it retained. Yeah, what was that guy's name again? I've totally forgotten, but I know what a 92 Fireblade pushes out for horsepower. Yeah. No, it is a weird one sometimes. Luckily, my mobile phone has a really good memory, so I tend to use that. It brings me on to sort of technology. Obviously, you work for Microsoft and work in sales for Microsoft. So I imagine you have done a fair bit of advocacy for what tools Microsoft itself has to help you out, as they seem to be catching up more and more all the time with the other assistive tech. Word spell checker is getting better than just, I remember when it used to just do red squiggly lines and you'd right click it, goes, well, I don't know either. Or it wouldn't, it now gives you sort of thesaurus meanings and stuff, which helps when you put the wrong where in.
Yeah. I think, in my role, less so in my sales role, I would say. I mean, I do work with my customer on diversity and inclusion and showing how these tools can help. I mean, creative industry has a lot of dyslexic people, right? So it's most of my customer owns this technology, so it's less about sales. It's more about helping them understand how to use it and adopt it. And then also being an advocate in the UK for dyslexia, it's really championing those learning tools, helping people understand how the immersive reader works, or how narration is going to help people, or read aloud is going to help. And all these things now, which I'm really impressed with, whether I work for Microsoft or not, they're embedded in all the apps, right? So if you want to do speech to text, it's on all of them, right? So it doesn't matter which application you're using, it's in there. And then being able to show children how they can split their text into something that's a better format for them to read, with a coloured background, or line item reading, or, as you say, visualizing some words into pictures for them, those sorts of things. So for me, it's there's two sides of it. One is, I use the tech myself, so I'm a firm believer, and I'm really impressed with the Microsoft tools for dyslexia. The second one is working as an advocate to help, children with dyslexia and parents understand what's there, and then working with my customer to show them how what they've already got can help their employees. Similarly, we've done joint events. So working with my customer and Microsoft, we've done joint kids events as well. So having that joint passion and showing that how technology can really empower people and really support them now, I think is why I'm really working for a company like Microsoft. If I'm honest, I need to have that, purpose beyond the job, as you say.
Yes. I think that is important, having something that drives you other than just how much it pays you and things like that. I don't know if you'll know this, but all of the assistive stuff you've just mentioned do they develop that with dyslexia in mind, or have they developed it for other things and it just so happens to work with dyslexics as well?
No, they've developed it with dyslexia in mind, partnering actually with Made by Dyslexia. Microsoft partner with Made by Dyslexia. So a charity that I love, and the awareness that they're driving. We also have some people internally dedicated to knowing about dyslexia and understanding how we both put that within our products and also raise awareness. So we work with externals on it. It's deliberate. It's not, by a byproduct, if you like.
Yes. Yeah. So do you have, do they tap you up to test any of it at any point?
Not myself, but I know that we do have the right people looking at it.
Yeah, by the way, yes. So how are you finding it? Because obviously I've had a previous guest on this podcast who work for assistive tech companies that will do a separate program that interacts with Microsoft Word. How are you finding the Microsoft product compares to that now versus a bespoke product?
I don't have an opinion, if I'm honest, because I haven't really used anything.
Okay, no problem. I'm just curious because obviously the Windows 11 has a lot more extra features than the previous version.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair observation. Is what you'll see is as our products evolve, more and more features and functions will come out. So it's only going to grow in its capability. And part of that is it's cloud-based product, right? So they can get features and functions out a lot quicker than they used to be able to as well. So we're delivering a lot more value to our users. I love hearing stories around where our consumers, our staff, children, anyone who's getting to grips with these tools, and on the boot camps, we did it not last Christmas because we were locked down. The Christmas we hosted a dyslexia, think differently about dyslexia boot camp for kids. They came into the Microsoft store. We showed them how to use all of the dyslexia learning tools, and having the children there, we made it fun. So they were there to create, a Christmas story, but we took the pain of reading and writing away and allowed them to use the technology in the most creative way. But hearing some of them say, "Mummy, I can read," like that's amazing. That makes it worthwhile. And I think the more awareness we can create of whether it's Microsoft or different technology, I'm sure there's amazing technology out there. It's not about that. It's about helping people.
Yes. So what version of Microsoft Office or Windows does the sort of speech to text stuff appear on?
So I'm not technical, but
okay, fair enough.
Microsoft 365 is a cloud-based product, so it will be in there. So it'll be whatever version you've got of Office 365 will have those capabilities in there, and I can give you some links to that if you're wondering. But it's the same as Windows. It's a cloud-based operating system now, so everything updates.
Yeah, that's cool. I just thought somebody would be there working on Office 2010 go, where is this feature?
Yeah, well, I would say they're probably using on-premise software, which is somewhat different and doesn't update as quickly. So my advice to people is get to the cloud.
Of course. Because you created the Think Differently About Dyslexia boot camps, how did they come about?
So it was a conversation with me and my colleague, Hector Minto, who is an absolute legend. I work with him. He's the accessibility lead for EMEA. And we started, in fact, it goes back to one of my friend's daughters was needing a week's work experience, or I think it may have been a couple of days.
Okay.
And came in with me to Microsoft. Just to get a feel for what it's like to be in the office and things like that before she did her A-levels. And she's dyslexic. And so I said, Hector had given me so much confidence in myself over the last few years in terms of, being proud of being dyslexic, owning it, understanding my skill set, not hiding away, not covering, championing, to other people. And when I knew that Ella was coming in, that I said, we should meet with Hector, and he can show you some of the Microsoft tools that would help you as you go into your A-levels. And so we sat down with Hector and showed her a few things, and we talked about it. And I realized, it just felt good. If I'm honest, I was able to help someone and show them something. And I said to Hector, we should do this on a bigger scale. Not big, right? It was 30 kids. I think we had our first one in Microsoft Reading. But, through our network, if we could just reach a handful of children who are dyslexic and help them, then, that's goodness for me. And this isn't my day job. This is something we did alongside our day jobs. We got some funding from Microsoft to run it. Everyone was very supportive. Our comms team did the work for us on the comms and the invites. Everyone just kind of did it as a part of the give back to the community, I guess. And from there, we did one in Reading, we did one in the Microsoft store. We've done a couple of now virtual ones, partnering with WPP to deliver that during lockdown and half-term time. So making it fun for the kids, because what we don't want them to feel is they're just learning a tool. We want them to do something creative with that tooling and show them how, they don't need to worry about the things that they find difficult, and they can focus on the things that they find really exciting. So it kind of just went from there, really, feeling like we could give something back. And I guess for me personally, I didn't want anyone to feel like I used to at school. That was difficult, to be told, you're not trying hard enough. You're clearly bright. You're not trying hard enough. And I was thinking, I am, and I understand this. So I don't understand why it's not come out on what I'm writing down. I remember my parents being told I wasn't trying hard enough, and that was quite hard on them when they found out I was dyslexic. And I just thought, technology is a game changer. And the more we can get people using technology to empower them in whatever they want to do, the better, right? And I work for one of the biggest technology companies in the world, so I'm privileged to be able to do that and give that back to people.
Yes, no, it's a horrible feeling being told you're not trying hard enough when you're trying a lot harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not fun. What's a day in a workshop look like? I guess they change over time, but a typical day, is it you sort of shown them the features, or have you got a task that kind of inadvertently?
Yeah, no, I remember at Christmas we did it around making a Christmas movie. So I think one of my posts on LinkedIn talks about it. So we got the kids in, we showed them how to do their script. So write their script in OneNote, but they didn't have to write it down. They could read it out and, and narrate their story, so they could take that pain away from having to think about writing or typing. We showed them how to create using the movie player that Microsoft's got, and show them, create how their creativity was the thing that we were focusing on. And so when it came to reading, they could, we had a passage of reading that they needed to read to be part of the story, but they could read that aloud, and they could read it in the way that they want to see it using immersive reader. So we showed them those things that they could then apply to being creative. So yeah, it's trying to put it in a fun context for them, but showing them the learning tools that Microsoft have. So it becomes like not a classroom exercise. It becomes a fun task for them. And we did a competition, so it was a little bit of gamification. So they all got up and they presented their final movie. They talked through the process of it. They got in front of their peers, that confidence that you get from doing that piece, and seeing them like really enjoying the day, and then going through to the prize giving and things like that. So yeah, we tried to really think about how we could make it fun, but they take away just a couple of key things.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. I can see this idea of it. The primary deliverable from your side is to get them to show them the tools, but you're actually, from their point of view, it's not deliberately showing them the tools. It just happens to be, here's a thing that helps you with this big task that's fun. And what prizes were you giving away out of curiosity?
I think we had things like Office 365 subscriptions so that they could take these tools home.
Yes.
I think we had some gaming prizes, as you'd expect, given that we own Xbox. So the company and actually the sponsors that we had for the event were super supportive to make it really special.
Good. No, that sounds like great fun. I imagine you got a lot personally out of the day, as well as you've already touched on through the beginning of this podcast. So you're also a mental health ambassador for Microsoft as well. How did you come about doing that? And is that linked in with your experience with dyslexia, or has that kind of come from a different area?
No, that's it's a bit different, I guess. It comes from lived experience, I guess, in terms of mental health in my family. Having a close relative who is an alcoholic and understanding how that can affect you, and knowing the different types of mental health, and everybody will experience mental health issues at some point in their life, like they do physical, but we can get, and it came up, and it was another area for me that I thought I could give back to. I firmly believe that we need to look after our mental health, and it's really easy to spiral. And so, I was approached by the person who was leading this initiative, and we got some mental health first aid training. So we went through training, and it's more like a triage piece. So if someone feels the need to talk to someone, they can come to a mental health ambassador, and we can show them the Microsoft resources that are out there for them, and be somebody they can talk to that isn't their manager if they're not comfortable doing that, and try and help point them in the right direction.
Okay. Do you find dyslexic thinking helps with that kind of role at all?
I'm not sure. I think I'm more maybe empathetic to challenges of lived experience, just because I think just generally working on accessibility, not necessarily dyslexia, and understanding the importance of D&I, and understanding the impact that mental health can have on you in the workplace if you're having a tough time is, I would say more broadly, my understanding of diversity and inclusion is probably what drove that, as opposed to my dyslexia.
Okay, yes, I could see what the sort of direction with that one. So obviously now a global account manager, so you're now in a leadership position. I'm always curious to see how dyslexia looks in a leadership position, and whether I always feel like it probably would suit a leadership position quite well, being a big picture thinker and being creative, and also being able to think of multiple streams at once. It seems to be something that a leader need to be really good at. How are you finding that experience?
I would agree. I do think that my dyslexia lends itself well to leading a large account and a large team. You have to have a broad understanding of what everyone's doing, and it's that bigger picture and pulling that strategy together across the teams. I think that naturally, though, there are things that I'm not amazing at, right? Which is writing heavy documents, things like that. And I need to have people in my team who complement my skills, and I complement them. I think I'm quite creative in my role, and I think about different types of engagements with my customer and how we can help them, how we can bring the whole of like Microsoft to them, rather than, being very tunnel visioned. I tend to be kind of, because I naturally bounce around in my thought process. I can dip in and out of things quite easily. I don't worry about being distracted. I know I'll come back to it and it will be fine. Yes. I'm not the most organized, but I have someone in my team who is super organized and helps me. So is a good kind of yin to my yang, if you like. Yeah. So yeah, I think as a leader, I'm a very people person. Communication, verbal communication is really important strength with dyslexia, and I think that helps as well. I can also be very visual, so my team always laugh at me, and because they know, I can write creative documents, right? I just have to be given the time for it. PowerPoint presentations, I'm quite creative with the way that I put them together and the way that I'm storytelling through that process. So it's not that I can't do it. It's just I need the time to think. And I need to think about visually how it's going to be impactful and how I'm going to tell that story. And I think that's where my dyslexia is a good trait, right? Because it by storytelling, you bring people on the journey with you. And you set that vision and strategy, and it's like having that North Star to go to.
Do you find you're recruiting people to fill in strengths and weaknesses within the team? Is that something you deliberately do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important generally to have a really diverse and inclusive team, right? And you need different perspectives. You need different people who think differently to you. You need people who challenge you. You need the right mindset. So, you couldn't have a room full of dyslexics. You'd probably never get anything done, right? So,
but it was super creative, yeah.
Think about all these great, amazing things we could do together. But yeah, I mean, I think like any team, you need that balance of different thinking, and whether that's someone who's dyslexic or not, like you need that value. You need people to be valued in that capacity and what they're good at and what their strengths are, and having that rounded team, I think, is just really important regardless of anything, to be honest.
I completely agree. And it's one of those kind of messages I've been trying to put out, is that having dyslexics are great in your team because you use it as part of a rounded team rather than kind of having loads of people who are all very similar.
Yeah. Well, if you're all the same, you've all got the same opinion and you're going to come out with the same answer, right? Whereas if you've got diversity of thought, and that's how I try and think about it, you're going to be a lot stronger. And we're not all the same. Our customers are not all the same. We need to be representative of the market that we're in.
Yes, I think you're right, and it certainly brings diverse thinking to it. We're all trying to build things that are better and greater, and we need more people to look at it and think about it to come into that. Okay, then that kind of gets me to a point where I think I'm going to ask some rapid fire questions, which I always round up. They're rapid fire for me, but they don't need rapid answers from you. However, what I'm going to sneak in first is Wes, who was on the previous podcast, said I needed to ask the next guest, what is your superpower?
I think creativity and thinking without boundary is probably, like, dyslexia in general, I would say, right? I do believe it gives me those skills, but I think that creativity and thinking without boundaries. Now, my husband would disagree with me because I would insist that a piece of furniture can fit in a room regardless of size or shape, because I just don't see that there's going to be a challenge with that. But I think that thinking beyond the standard boundaries that we're confined within is I ask a lot of, well, why not? Why can't we do that? Like, what's stopping us? And then trying to creatively solve a problem is I think where my strength is. It's just, and genuinely thinking differently. I see it when I'm in a room of people that, even when we interview people, like, I see different things, and it's really interesting. So yeah, I would say creativity and not seeing boundaries.
Must admit, I work in a similar way. Like, here are all my crazy ideas. Now I'm going to present them to you, and we can pare down together which one will actually work. Or kind of, it's quite a good fun process, having all the wild ideas and then start pairing them off once you knock off what does or doesn't work about them, or bolting three together to get the right solution. Okay, so first of my standard questions are, what prejudice do you have about dyslexia that has been proven wrong? What did you have about dyslexia?
What my own prejudice? I think when I initially found out, I thought I was thick, not as intelligent as some other people. And I naturally started to question myself. That's been proven wrong. It's been proven wrong through my degree and the results that I've driven in my career. So I would say early on, that was one thing that I would have looked at myself. I think actually realizing that just because I'm dyslexic doesn't mean I can't write creatively. You assume that people can't read and write. It's not that they can't read and write. It's that it's challenging and it more time consuming, but actually the thought process behind it can be absolutely as great, right? So I think that knowing that you can produce written artifacts and creative artifacts is something that I would challenge people. And then the funny one that I found out I didn't really realize, and it should have dawned on me, was I remember learning only probably 2 years ago that dyslexia is hereditary.
Oh, right. Yes.
So I had no idea that that was the case. And it makes total sense because I can see my parents absolutely have got dyslexia, but it didn't even dawn on me that it was hereditary. And it's something that I often challenge parents with dyslexic children because the penny hasn't dropped for them. It's like, well, who in the family is dyslexic? And I said, well, it's hereditary. So,
yes, it is.
Really, having that self-awareness with a dyslexic child, I think is important as well, because they're going to, I think if I'd known that was, it wasn't something that I just happened to have. Does that make sense? It was, was something that is hereditary and is a spectrum as well, I would say. It's some people are severely dyslexic, some people are not so dyslexic, and dyslexia is a spectrum, and people need to understand that as well. You can't just pigeonhole someone as dyslexic and think you know what that means.
No two dyslexics are the same.
No, and it's really important for people who are managing dyslexics to understand that they may come in with those assumptions about, well, it's probably because they can't read and write, when actually it's not that at all.
Yes, I completely agree. And the heredity point is a good one. I've had quite a few people on this podcast who have found out because their children are getting tested for dyslexia, and they're going, hang on, that's me. I do that. Oh,
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
okay.
It's like, the penny drops. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I need to use this stuff as well.
Yeah. Find out in their 50s and 60s. It's quite surprising, really. Okay. Second question is, if an alien came down, how would you describe dyslexia to them now?
Wow. I think I would go back to that picture I always think about, which is the left and right hand side of the brain.
Yeah.
And I think trying to show how that side of the things that are lit up in that side of the brain. So I would be trying to talk to them about music and arts and crafts and cooking and acting and saying, right, this is a dyslexic, and showing them examples of people who do that really well in their field. So that, I think that's how I would explain it, is going back to that right hand side of the brain and explaining all the goodness that comes out of that right hand side of the brain.
Yes, brilliant. I like that. Yeah, I can visualize the picture perfectly that you're going on about with all the colours and everything. Okay, and the last question, and of course, being that this is the Dyslexia Life Hacks shows, do you have any dyslexia life hacks?
I think for me, honestly, embracing the technology is my tip, right? And that whatever technology that is, that's not me pushing Microsoft or any other person, right? I genuinely just try and build that muscle into your daily life. I use read aloud. I use, speech to text. I use those things when I really need them. I need to build it in even more. I think that from a hack perspective, I'm not sure it's a hack, but my advice would be help people understand your dyslexia, because I found, as over the last couple of years where I've been a lot more open about it, I've really thought about helping other people understand me, because what we can't expect is somebody to just understand it. It's not their lived experience. So my life would be help other people understand you. And by doing that, it will make your life so much easier. I stop apologizing for things. I know that everyone understands, the way I am, and that when I'm tired, my spelling gets really bad. So, for me, it's that, just help other people help you, and stop hiding behind it or apologizing for it. And just, as my great colleague Hector said to me, own it. It's part of you, and that's who you are. And if you don't own it, nobody else will. So that's my advice.
And that's very brilliant advice. I think Hector had a lot of influence on you, and very positive by the sound of it.
He did.
Anything before we sign off? Is there anything you'd like to share or ask of the audience?
No, I think anyone listening to this who still isn't sure about what dyslexia is and dyslexic thinking, I think just learn about it, right? It's like anything. You can learn about it. You can be more empathetic by getting closer to the topic. You've probably got loved ones, friends, somebody who you know is dyslexic who would appreciate you understanding them further. And, you know, be an ally. Be an ally for dyslexics. That would be my ask of people, is help break the stigma, help people understand how amazing it can be, the skills that it can bring, the amazing talented people we have in the world because of dyslexia. That would be my ask, be an ally.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come on the podcast and tell me your story and all the other things within Microsoft and outside of Microsoft to do with dyslexia. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thanks for having me.
And thank you, everybody else, for listening. I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.